This video is brought to you by AG1. Whether you're a professional athlete like the ball players featured on my channel, or a handsome YouTuber just trying to crank out some editing, we're all facing the same challenge. It's not always easy to make health a priority. Thankfully, AG1 proves that nutrition doesn't have to be complicated. This one scoop of AG1 contains 75 vitamins, minerals, and whole food source ingredients. Just add water, shake, and enjoy. Yes. I'm detecting notes of pineapple and vanilla. Okay, seriously, it does taste good, and it boosts energy and mental clarity. Who needs coffee? I'm not drinking coffee in the morning. Plus, it's gluten-free, low-calorie, keto-friendly, and most importantly for me, dairy-free because I no longer tolerate lactose. By placing your first AG1 order through my link in the description, you'll also receive 5 bonus travel packs as well as a 1-year supply of their vitamin D3K2. Thank you to AG1 for sponsoring this video. Babe Ruth's nemesis was not an opposing pitcher, simply because he owned them all. The Bambino collected 100 or more plate appearances against 22 American League pitchers throughout his playing career. His worst matchup by OPS? Hall of Famer Red Faber, who he had a .274 average, .408 on base, and .482 slugging against. That's below Ruth's standards, but still pretty darn good. Babe Ruth is the career leader in wins above replacement once you account for his own time on the mound, but you, the viewer watching this, are worth more career WAR than his kryptonite. His name was Tommy Thevenow. He was an obscure sub-replacement level infielder who played his entire career in the National League. But whenever he crossed paths with Babe Ruth, he came out on top. The unlikely rivals couldn't have been any more different. In terms of home run rate, only Mark McGwire went yard more often than Babe Ruth, and that was with the help of performance-enhancing milks. Tommy Thevenow, meanwhile, represented the other end of the spectrum as 6th all-time in home run infrequency. And Tevinau played his entire career in the live ball era that Babe Ruth single-handedly dragged baseball kicking and screaming into. 'Cause who wants to watch big boppers blasting baseballs to the bleachers? Not me. Tevinau made his MLB debut in 1924 with the St. Louis Cardinals. By 1925, the league-wide home run rate had already tripled from 7 years prior. This rapid transformation was due to Babe Ruth himself. In the 1920s, he out-homered half the teams in the American League, stating simply, "LOL, just swing harder, dummies." On a per-at-bat basis, Ruth homered at approximately 178 times the rate of Tevinau. The only live ball era player to homer less often was Duane Kuiper. We will now take approximately 10 seconds to enjoy Duane Kuiper's only career home run in 12 big league seasons.
1-0 pitch to the left-hand batter. He drives one down the right field line, headed for the wall, and it's gone! Duane Kuiper just hit his first home run!
Oh yeah, that's the stuff. In September 1926, Thomas Edison declared the radio a commercial failure. Whoops. Also, on the 17th, Tommy Thevenow stepped up to the plate in the 9th inning against Phillies pitcher Lefty Tabor at the Baker Bowl. A newspaper account described Thevenow driving the ball to right field, only for Phillies outfielder Freddie Leach to trip over a drain pipe, ending his season and allowing Thevenow to circle the bases in the process. He had done it, an inside-the-park home run in his 221st career game. 5 days later, facing Brooklyn at Ebbets Field, lightning struck twice as Tevinau hit another inside-the-parker off Bob McGraw. In the span of a week, he went from 0 career home runs to 2. This isn't the only time this kind of thing has happened. Johnny Cooney, an outfielder who played parts of 20 seasons in the big leagues, hit both of his career home runs in the same series. At the regular season's conclusion, Tevinau miraculously finished 4th in NL MVP voting despite an OPS of 600 and an OPS plus of just 59. The perks of being on the pennant-winning team, I guess. The 4th worst park-adjusted hitter somehow finished 4th in MVP voting. Voters chose to recognize his elite defense at shortstop as Tevinau led MLB in fielding runs. And with Tevinau's Cardinals and Ruth's Yankees winning their league's respective pennants, the polar opposites were set to face off in the 1926 World Series. The Yankees grabbed Game 1 thanks to a go-ahead RBI single by Lou Gehrig. In the bottom of the 9th of Game 2, leading 5-2, Tommy Thevenow stepped up to the plate, driving the ball towards Ruth in right field. The Cincinnati Enquirer described the Babe sprinting toward the line only to just miss the ball and go tumbling in the stands. It probably looked something like this. Tevinau kicked into high gear as Ruth had trouble locating the baseball. The Bambino, a former pitcher, uncorked a powerful throw to Yankee catcher Pat Collins. Tevinau slid into the plate, and he was safe. The moment was captured in the Indianapolis Times. Tommy Thevenow, the man who never homered, had just done so in the World Series at the expense of Babe Ruth. This photo isn't great, but thankfully we can use AI to upscale and colorize the image. Okay, no, that's not right. Nobody could have known it at the time, but this was the last home run of Tevinau's career. Over the next 12 seasons, he failed to homer in 3,347 consecutive at-bats, a major league record to this day. And yet, somehow, he managed to circle the bases on the biggest stage of all. In a span of just 2.5 weeks, Tevinau had managed to leg out 3 inside-the-park home runs, all of which were hit in different stadiums. In terms of unlikely World Series home runs, it's comparable to Tom Lawless, who finished his career with 2 regular season home runs, but took Frank Viola deep in the '87 series. He could have acted like he'd been there, but he actually hadn't, so he unleashed an outrageous bat flip instead. A couple players have managed to homer in the World Series without any regular season home runs. The first was Mickey Lolich in 1968, and the second was Joe Blanton 40 years later. Both were pitchers, so their opportunities to go yard were less frequent. After another Cardinal victory in Game 3, Babe Ruth responded with 3 dingers of his own in Game 4. The Yankees took a 3-2 series lead in Game 5, setting up one of the most dramatic World Series conclusions in baseball history. In Game 6, the Cardinals tied the series up at 3 apiece. Tevinau collected a couple hits as St. Louis won 10-2, but the real highlight was a complete game from Grover Cleveland Alexander, nicknamed Old Pete. Old Pete had quite the year in 1926. At the age of 39, he was abruptly sold from the Cubs to the Cardinals at waiver prices. Cubs manager Joe McCarthy had grown tired of Alexander's erratic behavior and wanted him off the team. Alexander proceeded to help the Cardinals win the pennant, then forced a Game 7 in the Fall Classic versus the Yankees. He thought his work for the year was done, but it wasn't. In the bottom of the 4th, Tommy Thevenow stepped into the batter's box against Waite Hoyt with 1 out and the bases loaded. Tevinau had been among the league's worst hitters in the regular season, but not in the World Series. He singled to right field, driving in 2 runs and giving the Cardinals a 3-1 lead. In the bottom of the 7th, the Cardinals found themselves in a dire situation. Their starting pitcher, Jesse Haynes, had to be removed from the game after walking Lou Gehrig to load the bases with 2 outs. Who did player-manager Rogers Hornsby call upon to preserve the lead? None other than Old Pete himself, who had just tossed a complete game the previous day. Alexander, the Cub castaway, struck out Tony Lazzeri to end the inning. Years later, the moment was brought to the big screen when Ronald Reagan starred as Grover Cleveland Alexander opposite Doris Day as his faithful wife. The casting call must have been for a big righty. Today, Old Pete still has the 3rd most pivotal strikeout in MLB history by championship win probability added. In the bottom of the 9th, the Yankees were down to their last out when Alexander walked Ruth. This brought Bob Musial to the plate. On the 2nd pitch, Ruth took off anticipating a hit-and-run play, but Musial failed to make contact. Reigning NL MVP Bob O'Farrell popped up from his squat and launched the ball towards second base. The Babe was out. The Cardinals had won the World Series. By championship win probability added, neither Ruth, nor Gehrig, nor Hornsby improved their team's chances of victory the most. Among all batsmen in the series, that honor belonged to Tommy Thevenow, though Pete Alexander would have certainly won World Series MVP had the award existed at the time. Old Pete gave plenty of credit to his shortstop, crediting Tevinau's 4th inning single as well as his defense for the St. Louis victory, while Tevinau's manager and double play partner Rogers Hornsby called him the greatest shortstop in baseball. And his battles with Babe Ruth weren't done yet. The two would meet again nearly a decade later. As you know, Tevinau proceeded to not hit a home run for the final 3,347 at-bats of his career. A mind-boggling statistic. Heading into the 2023 season, the hitter with the longest active homerless streak is Cleveland's Miles Straw, who last cleared the fences on August 26, 2021, and has gone 694 at-bats without doing so since. That's barely even 20% of Tevinau's record streak. Tevinau's final season in St. Louis was in 1928. He hopped on board with the Phillies the following spring, but was in a major car accident at the end of spring training. Tevinau survived, but had reconstructive surgery on his jaw, changing his appearance. He continued to bounce around the National League, joining the Pirates for the 1931 season. In 1932, he missed time with a small injury, opening the door for rookie Archie Vaughan, who is statistically one of the most underrated players in the history of the game. Vaughan is the only shortstop in MLB history with a career on-base percentage over 400. In the Negro Leagues, that feat was replicated only by Willie Wells. Around the same time, Babe Ruth's career with the Yankees was coming to a close. In 1935, he joined the Boston Braves of the National League, putting him in the same city he made his American League debut in over 2 decades prior. It's a move that has since been replicated by other superstars in their twilight years. Willie Mays played for the Mets, Hank Aaron played for the Brewers, and Giovanni Soto played for the White Sox. Ruth only played 28 games for the Braves, but was still able to deliver one more magical moment. On May 25, 1935, he hit the final 3 home runs of his career, numbers 712, 713, and 714, just as he went yard thrice in the 1926 World Series versus Tevinau. It tied Ruth's personal record for the most total bases recorded in a single game. But it wasn't enough to stop Tommy Thevenow. Even though number 714 was supposedly the farthest ball ever hit at Pittsburgh's Forbes Field, Tevinau had the last laugh, going 2 for 4 with 5 runs batted in, including a bases-clearing triple in the 7th to give the Pirates a lead they wouldn't relinquish. Once again, Tommy Thevenau's heroics managed to steal a fraction of the Bambino's thunder. In fact, his Pirates went 20-2 versus Ruth's lowly Braves that season. Tevinau retired in 1938 and died of a stroke in 1957. Much of the information contained in this video comes from his biography for the Society of American Baseball Research. The final 2 sentences, written by researcher Warren Corbett, are as follows. Tevinau kept few mementos of his baseball career. One of his prizes was an autographed photo of him with the Babe, the Sultan of Swat, and the Sultan of Not.